evening. Shannon Bream is up next. She has a great show on tap. Miss Shannon.
Hey, see if the sisters will pray for us, too. We'd
No
appreciate
problem.
it. We all need it these days, Laura. All right, here's what's coming up
Absolutely.
tonight. We do.
The FBI under fire from the president's own party.
There's got to be something more here. It can't just be some text messages that show a pro-Clinton, anti-Trump bias.
On the heels of a heated hearing with FBI Director Christopher Wray, Congressman Jim Jordan joins us live with the Inside Scoop. Plus,
I will be resigning as a member of the United States Senate.
But, quote, in the coming weeks rather than immediately, could Senator Al Franken be looking for cover? Steyerwalt investigates. And the so-called Mike Pence rule comes under fire from the left, even after an avalanche of sexual harassment allegations continue to rock the nation.
Now, what is he afraid of?
We'll debate with the vice president's former spokesman, Mark Lauder, and radio host Leslie Marshall.
Hello and welcome to Fox News at Night. I'm Shannon Bream in Washington. From Al Franken to Trent Franks, allegations are turning into resignations. And we have brand new developments this hour. Senator Franken, a Democrat, says he's resigning soon, raising questions about why the delay and who will fill that critical Minnesota Senate seat. Congressman Franks, a Republican, has just resigned amid a scathing goodbye from House Speaker Paul Ryan. Let's get started on all of this tonight with Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry. All right, Ed, let's start with these late developments on Trent Franks. What do we know?
Well, it's interesting because, as you know, he was one of the first Tea Party members in the House of Representatives. He's somebody who's coming out tonight saying that he and his wife had problems with fertility. They wanted to have a child, and he's basically acknowledging that maybe a couple of his female staff members were asked to be a surrogate mom, and that is backfiring on him tonight. Putting out in a statement, Franks, quote, due to my familiarity and experience with the process of surrogacy, I clearly became insensitive as to how the discussion of such an intensely personal topic might affect others. I have recently learned that the Ethics Committee, Franks says, is reviewing an inquiry regarding my discussion of surrogacy with two previous female subordinates, making each feel uncomfortable. I deeply regret that my discussion of this option and process in the workplace caused distress. Now, the other interesting angle here is that Speaker Paul Ryan is being very aggressive tonight in suggesting that he forced this resignation and that just a few days ago this was brought to his attention and he acted very quickly. A statement from Ryan's office saying in part, last Wednesday, the Speaker was briefed on credible claims of misconduct by Representative Trent Franks. He found the allegations to be serious and requiring action, meaning the Speaker. The next day, the Speaker presented Representative Franks with the allegations, which he did not deny. The Speaker told Rep. Franks that he intended to refer the allegations directly to the House Ethics Committee and told him that he should resign from Congress. So what's significant about that is you've seen a sharp contrast to how Nancy Pelosi initially handled the John Conyers situation. Remember, she was on NBC's Meet the Press calling Conyers an icon, doubting the accounts of some of the women who had come forward against Conyers. She faced a lot of flack from the left. Now, in contrast, Speaker Ryan deciding to move very swiftly and basically helping to force a resignation of Trent Franks, Shannon.
Yeah, that one was very swift. All right, so a different resignation that wasn't so swift. We knew or we believed this was coming today with Senator Franken, but there were at least a couple of surprises.
Yeah, there were. I mean, with more than 30 Senate Democrats calling for Franken's resignation, he had no chance of political survival. The surprises came when Franken delivered a speech that started out with grace and humility, but then he infuriated some of the left by failing to even apologize to any of the women involved. While on the right, there was a collective eye roll, or maybe more, anger, over Franken suggesting he was willing to take his medicine, but then trying to deflect attention and responsibility from himself with some parting and perhaps cheap shots aimed at both President Trump and Republican Senate candidate Roy Moore. Watch.
There is some irony in the fact that I am leaving while a man who has bragged on tape about his history of sexual assault sits in the Oval Office, and a man who has repeatedly preyed on young girls campaigns for the Senate with the full support of his party.
Then there's the fact that, as you mentioned, Franken did not really leave today, merely saying he will resign in coming weeks. The Democratic governor, when Franken does go, is likely to appoint the female lieutenant governor to the seat as a placeholder, while others run for the seat at the end of 2018, Shannon.
All right, Ed, for that special election, a lot of interesting names being thrown out there tonight, raising some eyebrows.
Yeah, remember, Franken barely won his seat in the first place, an extremely close race. The man who lost, former Senator Norm Coleman, is getting a lot of buzz on the Republican side as to whether he might get in. Tim Pawlenty, the one-time presidential candidate, former governor of Minnesota, also being mentioned. While on the Democratic side, one big name being mentioned is Congressman Keith Ellison, who would become the first Muslim American senator. Remember, Ellison was blocked from becoming DNC chair in part because of writings in his past that seemed to praise Louis Farrakhan, the anti-Semitic head of the Nation of Islam. As Ellison ducked mention of the race in a statement that said in part, quote, "I commend the brave women who have come forward in recent weeks to share their experience of sexual harassment and assault. Their courage is immense and has sparked a long overdue national reckoning," he says, with persistent inequities and injustices in our society. A wild card could be former Fox anchor Gretchen Carlson, who hails from Minnesota and helped kick off the national conversation on sexual harassment. She told CNN today, who knows when it comes to whether she may enter politics at some point. She has already been rumored to be a potential candidate for another Senate seat from Connecticut, where Carlson lives now. Now, after that interview with CNN kicked up speculation, though, Carlson tweeted out she's not running for Senate from Connecticut, was just saying she will not rule out politics in general at some point in her life. Shannon?
This could get very interesting. All right, Ed Henry, thank you very much. Fox News politics editor Chris Stirewalt joins us now to break it down. Good to have you with us tonight.
You know it.
So you know I'm going all Nancy Drew on the Senator Franken thing, because when he said today, I'm going to resign in the next few weeks, I was like, what?
The case of the curious cloakroom.
Exactly. I think he's waiting to see if Roy Moore gets elected, and if he does, and if they don't quickly move to get rid of him, he's going to be able to stand there and say, why should I leave?
All things are possible, right?
Mark it down.
It is written that all things are possible. However, I would say that in the case of Al Franken, his perfectly awful speech today will do nothing to encourage his fellow Democrats to give him a second look if he decides to try to stick around. Democrats obviously won't be upset about the fact that Franken mentioned the fact that the accusations against President Trump or the accusations against Roy Moore. But where he misses is the fact he says, I don't deserve this. Basically,
Al
Franken's message today was, I don't deserve this. You people are doing this to me, and I am only doing it. He was basically saying, like, I am the martyr here, and this is unfair, and how dare you do this to me? And that's not really taking it for the team. If you're taking one for the team, as we talked about last night, just send a daggone letter. That's all you have to do. You just have to send a letter. I hereby resign from the United States Senate. Blah blah. And it's done. But instead, he had to keep it going. As I wrote the other day, if he was still working for Lorne Michaels, they'd have cut this skit a lot shorter. They'd have cut this sucker way down.
Yeah, because when he started talking about today that, I'm not admitting to things that people thought I was admitting to, this has been a hard time for me, it seemed a little bit off. Whether it was a Republican or Democrat giving that after everything they've gone through, you'd think you would just say, these women were offended, I'm stepping away.
You want the platform of the Senate floor. You want to go down there into the well of the Senate. You want to speak about this. You want to talk about the Republic. You want to talk about Jeff Flake gave it a shot when he announced his retirement. You want to kind of swing for the fences. You don't get up there and play small ball like Franken did today.
Oh, okay. All right. So a number of celebrities and people on the left were very upset about this. Bette Midler tweeted out, the Dems are always ready to dump one of their own. The GOP stand behind every child molester and every harasser, including POTUS. As unpleasant as it is to face, that's political suicide. I can remember many cases, and listen, you're the political encyclopedia, where Democrats did not force one of their own out. And today, Republicans, the speaker got really tough with Trent Franks and said goodbye.
Well, look, we've all learned lessons from the 1990s, not just about hairstyles. We've all learned these lessons. Now. And the lessons Democrats learned from Bill Clinton and their experience in defending him was that they ruined their credibility on a lot of things, and this is partly getting right. But you know who deserves a lot of credit today is the House Speaker, because even before Nancy Pelosi was moving against the creep caucus on the Democratic side, we now know that, in fact, Ryan was moving against Franks, that already Ryan was putting into motion what panned out today with Franks. Now, he's still got the Blake Farenthold problem, and that's going to grow and grow for him. That's going to continue to be a problem until Farenthold basically leaves under his own steam, which I'm sure is what Ryan wants. But today, Ryan demonstrated, yeah, I'm in the game too, and I'm here.
And the Democrats have Congressman Keywen also, and that's a real interesting back and forth.
He's shaking Nancy Pelosi down for a fare thee well,
Yeah, because he says she knew about the allegation against him.
How can you ask me to leave? You knew about it, and when you backed my re-election.
And you backed my re-election.
It's your fault that I'm still here, so I get to stay.
By the way, Creep Caucus, do they have an official Twitter account? Because I want to know every member. More are coming.
We'll get T-shirts made.
No, I'm not going to wear one of those. I just want to know who's in it. And we do know some more of you who will be coming. All right, Chris, good to see you.
You bet.
See you later. All right, Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton says he will make and announce his decision about Franken's replacement within the next few days. So what if he doesn't resign? This person's name's going to be out there. I don't know. So who's in the running in the short term and the long term? More on that in just a few minutes. Turning now to the divide in Washington, not the one we witness every day on Capitol Hill. New developments tonight concerning allegations of anti-Trump influence inside the FBI and the Justice Department. James Rosen joins us tonight with an exclusive investigation. James, good to see you.
Shannon, good evening. Until Wednesday morning, when Fox News started making inquiries about him, Bruce Orr held 2 jobs at the Justice Department. He was and remains director of the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. But Orr was stripped of his title as Associate Deputy Attorney General, a more senior post that placed him 4 doors down from Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein, and was ousted from that office because, according to senior DOJ officials, Orr withheld from superiors his previously undisclosed meetings last year with 2 shadowy figures. The House Intelligence Committee has uncovered that Orr met with Christopher Steele, the former British spy who authored the infamous anti-Trump dossier with input from Russian sources, and that Orr also met with Glenn Simpson, the founder of Fusion GPS, the opposition research firm that paid Mr. Steele with funding from the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee. The dossier was given to the FBI in July 2016, around the same time that Donald Trump accepted the GOP nomination. Former FBI Director James Comey has described the dossier as a collection of salacious and unverified material about Mr. Trump and his associates. Republican lawmakers want to know whether the Democratic-funded dossier was used to obtain a warrant for FISA surveillance on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. And during a House Judiciary hearing this morning, Republican Jim Jordan of Ohio put the question bluntly to the new FBI Director, Christopher Wray.
The Democrat National Committee and the Clinton campaign, which we now know were one and the same, paid the law firm, who paid Fusion GPS, who paid Christopher Steele, who then paid Russians to put together a report that we call a dossier full of all kinds of fake news, National Enquirer garbage. And it's been reported that this dossier was all dressed up by the FBI, taken to the FISA court, and presented as a legitimate intelligence document, that it became the basis for granting a warrant to spy on Americans. And I'm wondering if that actually took place.
Congressman, our staffs have been having extensive interaction with both intelligence committees on our interaction with the FISA court, and I think that's the appropriate setting for those questions.
The demotion of Bruce Orr follows similar revelations this week about Peter Strzok, the FBI official who was removed from the staff of Special Counsel Robert Mueller in July following the discovery of anti-Trump text messages that Strzok sent to a colleague. Strzok has played critical roles in 3 big cases: the Clinton email server, the dossier, and the allegations of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin. Shannon.
James Rosen with some exclusive reporting there. We look forward to more, as I know there's more coming. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Shannon.
All right, we are now joined by Republican Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan. You had a busy day today.
We did.
Than's for staying up late with us.
Good to be with me.
Okay, so do you think you will get the answer from the FBI about whether the dirty dossier was used as the means to get a warrant to then track the Trump administration?
I'm convinced it was used. They can prove me wrong. They can present the application. Nothing preventing them from doing so. We're the Judiciary Committee. We have jurisdiction over the Justice Department. Show us what you took, not what the court has, what you took to the court that became the basis for securing warrants to spy on Americans associated with the Trump campaign. So show us the document, show us the application.
I know that you've had numerous requests. The committee has in for all kinds of answers and documents. Where are they? Are you getting those?
Some, and thank goodness that the Speaker and Devin Nunes and the Intel Committee and Chairman Goodlatte were all pushing. But we need that information because each day, we just heard about Mr. Orr, we know about Peter Strzok, who we talked about in committee today. Each and every day, something new comes out which reinforces this belief that you had the FBI working with the Clinton campaign to go after the other party's nominee. That is not supposed to happen in this great country. It is not supposed to work that way. You had this dossier, which was, Clinton campaign paying Fusion GPS, paying Christopher Steele, paying Russians for a bunch of baloney that they turn into an intelligence document, take it to the court to get a warrant to spy on Americans? Really? And potentially Christopher Steele was also, it's been reported, paid by the FBI, the MI6 agent who collected the information. So all this goes on, and Peter Strzok gets dismissed from the Mueller team, the guy who ran the Clinton investigation, ran the Russian investigation. It all starts to just point to this idea that the government was working with one major political party to go after the other party's nominee, and that is not fair to Mr. Trump. President Trump, that's not fair to, it's just not how it's supposed to work.
Do you think that you will get an opportunity to question Mr. Strzok? And if so, what's your first question?
I hope so. I hope so. Did you do it? My guess is his fingerprints are all over this application. He was the deputy head of counterintelligence to the FBI. I mean, he's probably one of the key guys involved in all the FISA applications that go to the FISA court. So I want to question him. We got Mr. Rosenstein coming next week. I think that's important. So there are lots of questions, but give us the documents. Prove us wrong. I don't think we're wrong.
One of your colleagues across the aisle today says these attacks and these accusations about the FBI are politically motivated. This is Congressman Jerry Nadler.
I predict that these attacks on the FBI will grow louder and more brazen as the special counsel does his work and the walls close in around the president and evidence of his obstruction and other misdeeds becomes more apparent.
Is that what these tough questions for the FBI
No,
are
but
about?
they are going to grow louder because think of Peter Strzok, the head of counterintelligence at the FBI, the guy who ran the Clinton investigation, interviewed Huma Abedin, interviewed Cheryl Mills, interviewed Secretary Clinton. He's the guy who changed the exoneration letter from Director Comey from gross negligence, which is a crime, to extreme carelessness. He made that change. He's the guy who interviewed Mike Flynn. He ran the Russian investigations, gets picked by Bob Mueller to go on his team, and then gets kicked off for a few text messages? Come on.
You think there's much more to that?
It has to be more. If you kicked everyone off who was anti-Trump text messages on the Mueller camp, there wouldn't be anyone left on the Mueller team.
Well,
so it has to be more.
Do you think it's a fair team, though? Do you think, well, and I want to put up a poll here that's a new one from CBS asking people whether they think that this is a justified investigation or politically motivated. There's now a higher number of people who think this is politically motivated. 48% say that they think that that is actually what this Russia investigation is about.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me, because people with common sense can look at all that's unfolded, all that we have learned in the last several weeks with Mr. Orr, with Mr. Strzok, with what we learned about the dossier and the fact that the Clinton campaign, the DNC paid for, all this that we've learned, and they say, wait a minute, I thought we were supposed to be investigating possible coordination between the Trump campaign and Russians to influence the election.
Have you seen any?
No, I haven't seen a bit, but we do know that the Clinton campaign paid Russians to do what? Influence the election. And so Americans are sharp people, common sense, and they're saying, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. And each and every day we get more information which confirms something's wrong here, something smells bad here. Let's get the answers. And the best way to get the answers is for the FBI to give us that application and we can know.
Let me ask you, because of all the scandals and things that have unfolded today, we were expecting the resignation of Senator Franken today. Were you surprised by the resignation of your colleague, Congressman Franks?
Yeah, we were. Trent's a good man and
We've
did
had
not
him
know
many
about
times.
this. Yeah, and did not know about this, and I have not even seen his statement. He told us on the House floor, a few of us tonight, that there would be a statement. And we were busy this evening with the dinner we had to attend, so I'll take a look at his statement and talk more with Trent next week.
I know there's a lot of concern for folks all over the Hill with multiple cases out there bubbling up. So thank you for making time for us tonight on a long day.
Shannon.
Good to
Congratulations on the show and everything.
Thank you very much. Come back anytime.
We will.
All right, tonight, another government shutdown averted for now. Earlier this evening, the House and Senate passed a temporary stopgap spending bill that means the government will be funded through December 22nd if the president signs the measure as expected. The four top congressional leaders went to the White House to meet with the president this afternoon. He emphasized bipartisanship, saying, quote, "We're all here as a very friendly, well-unified group." All right, we'll keep you updated as the December 22nd deadline comes along for a long-term solution that's still approaching. New tonight, the Justice Department announcing it has launched a federal investigation into Planned Parenthood. The DOJ will look into the organization's practices regarding fetal tissue and whether Planned Parenthood profited from selling it. The DOJ is seeking unredacted documents from the Senate Judiciary Committee's probe back in 2016. The Senate investigation was first launched after undercover footage from a pro-life group, the Center for Medical Progress, went public. That group says the videos show Planned Parenthood officials negotiating over the sale of fetal parts. Planned Parenthood has denied any wrongdoing. Well, the Census Bureau is out with its list of the most wealthy counties in the nation, and the top 5 richest just right here outside the nation's capital. No questions about that. Topping the list are Loudoun and Fairfax counties in Northern Virginia, along with Howard County, Maryland, and just over the Potomac from Washington, Arlington County and Falls Church City, which the Census Bureau considers a county equivalent. All right, we're going to tell you where in the world this very special Christmas tree is and how it's a miracle that it survived to become a holiday spectacle. And anti-Semitism breaks out after President Trump's big Middle East announcement. Will go live to Jerusalem for the very latest as the sun's about to rise there. Plus, thousands of acres of Southern California are still burning tonight. Our Adam Housley joins us live. Adam?
The fires continue to burn behind me. This is the Thomas fire, the largest fire burning in California since Monday now. It's chewed up more than 115,000 acres. We'll have all the latest details coming up.
Roads and schools are closed, buildings are burning, and thousands of people are under new evacuation orders as 4 major wildfires burn across Southern California. Senior correspondent Adam Housley has the very latest tonight. He has been tracking these fires right on the front lines. Good to see you tonight, Adam.
Yeah, Shannon, where we are here in Southern California near Ventura, between Ventura and Ojai, the only good news is there's no winds here, but unfortunately it's not the case for other parts of Southern California. Everything is still, though, very dry here. We're in a red flag warning until midday Saturday. Behind me, this is just one flank of the Thomas fire, which has been burning since Monday evening. That's when the Santa Ana winds came through here with very low humidity and burned down a couple hundred homes through the area of Ventura, the city of Ventura, and then burned up in towards Ojai, threatened the town today of Carpinteria, which is on the way to Santa Barbara on the 101 freeway. As you can see here, you can see the embers actually falling down the hill. That's actually a good sign, because if there's a wind, you would see those embers up in the air, and that's where the fire starts to spread quickly. In some cases, it can spread 15 miles like we saw on Monday night in a matter of a very short time frame, maybe even an hour or so. But those embers now falling down the hillside obviously still can spark other fires here. Meantime, we've had some new fire today, 2 new fires, one out in Riverside County, the other one in San Diego near Camp Pendleton towards Oceanside a bit. It's burned down some homes there. 18,000 people have been evacuated near that fire. It's called the Lilac Fire. The pictures coming in tonight shows that this one is moving very fast in the westerly direction towards homes and towards much more populated areas. So obviously a very strong concern down there tonight. Firefighters have come in from all over the west. I've seen fire trucks here from northern Nevada, which is a good 10, 11-hour drive. And just about everywhere mutual aid has come to Southern California to battle these fires. I mean, back here live, look at this. It looks like a river of lava coming down the hillside here, just off the 33 freeway. Again, we're just outside of the city of Ventura on a hillside, and we saw 3 or 4 other locations like this as you move towards the town of Ojai, which is probably 15 miles or so, 20 miles up the road. So, Shannon, tonight the firefight continues in Southern California. It's not going to let up anytime soon. The red flag alert remains through the midday on Saturday. And, you know, they called for those heavy winds to come through. We had a little bit last night, and for the most part today, it's just they've come and gone a little bit. So we're hoping that it remains that way. Those winds stay away, because until they do, until we get some rain, unfortunately, we'll be dealing with this type of fire situation in Southern California.
Those
Shannon?
are just stunning images. Adam Housley there, still on the front lines for days. Thank you so much, Adam. We appreciate it.
All right.
Well, as Friday dawns in the Holy Land, fresh concerns that anti-U.S. and anti-Israel demonstrations over the president's Jerusalem pronouncement could be sparked during Friday prayer services. A senior Palestinian official said on Thursday that the vice president, scheduled to visit the region later this month, is, quote, unwelcome in Palestine. David Lee Miller joins us now live from Jerusalem with the very latest. Good evening.
Shannon, in just the last 24 hours, about 100 Palestinians were injured in violent clashes with Israeli troops throughout the West Bank. The city of Bethlehem, which Vice President Pence is planning to visit, was no exception to the hostilities. And the city of Ramallah, which is the headquarters for the Palestinian president, also saw its share of violence. That city today experienced Palestinians throwing rocks at Israeli troops. They also burned tires in the streets. Israeli soldiers fired rubber-coated bullets, water cannons, and tear gas to try and control the protesters. And an isolated Hamas-controlled Gaza, thousands marched denouncing President Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The leader of Hamas urged supporters to take part in a new intifada, or uprising. And demonstrations also took place in Jordan outside the U.S. Embassy in Amman. King Abdullah, a U.S. ally, has criticized President Trump's Jerusalem declaration. The king met with the Palestinian president to discuss the U.S. position. And despite the negative response to President Trump's announcement, Israeli authorities are hoping that other countries follow the lead of the United States, recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, reflecting on the president's decision today, called it historic.
Over the millennia, you can actually cite a few significant milestones. Yesterday's statement by President Trump, I think, is such a milestone.
And in just a few hours, many Palestinians are going to attend Friday prayers in observance of the Muslim Sabbath. Many Palestinians are off of work today, and there is concern among security personnel here in Israel that there could be an escalation in the number of anti-Israeli and anti-U.S. protests on the streets. Shannon, Israeli authorities have now deployed reinforcements to the West Bank, anticipating a possible spike in the violence. Shannon, back to you.
Well, the start of a new day there in Jerusalem. David Lee Miller, thank you very much. More fallout from President Trump's big announcement Wednesday. Windows of a kosher deli in the Netherlands smashed just a day after the president announced his intention to move America's embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. In the footage you see here, a 29-year-old Amsterdam resident is holding a Palestinian flag before smashing windows at the restaurant. Two police officers initially watched him before actually intervening and subduing him with pepper spray. Well, Al Franken won his Senate seat by little more than 300 votes in a race marred by allegations of rampant voter fraud. So what does that mean for GOP chances to pick up that seat, soon to be potentially vacant? Could there be another close call? Stick around to find out. And later, does politics have any place in the Olympics? One Olympic skier apparently thinks so. We'll explain. Al Franken was a comedian in 2008, fresh off some USO tours when he beat incumbent Senator Republican Norm Coleman, winning by just 312 votes. There were legal challenges, including allegations that felons put Franken over the top by voting illegally for the Democrat. 9 years is a long time, and a lot has changed in Minnesota, but does a Republican stand a chance of winning there now, even by a small margin? Dan McGrath is the communications director for the Minnesota Voters Alliance, so let's ask him. Dan, welcome.
Hello.
What do you think are the odds that a Republican voice could walk into this race and have success?
Well, I think it's entirely possible. When we're dealing with statewide races, it wasn't that long ago that we had a Republican governor, Tim Pawlenty. His name's been floated as a possible candidate to run for Senate to fill that vacant seat, or apparently going to be vacant seat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in the meantime, obviously, it will be filled. And obviously, it's often that person that if they spend a few months there, they have the name recognition, they take on a little bit of the incumbency. Technically, they are the incumbent. But really, the campaigning for the seat, I thought, would have already started by this point anyway. It's not that far out.
Well, no, that's true. 2018, in politics, 1 year from now is a very, very short span of time. I think it's interesting that all of this, everything that's happening in the press right now with Senator Franken, with our Supreme Court case, our data practices case in Minnesota for access to election data, it all stems back to that 2008 election where Al Franken sort of won against Norm Coleman. So remember on election night, Norm Coleman had won by over 700 votes. After months of recounting, Franken came out on top by 312 votes, but our research proved that over 3 times that number of ineligible persons participated illegally influencing that election.
Yeah, that was one for the history books. It really was. It's hard to believe it's been 9 years for that. He talked today about having this great honor of representing the people of his brilliant, creative, hardworking state. He said whoever will hold the seat will inherit a challenge that he's enjoyed for the last 8.5 years. So we'll wait to see in the short term and the long term who that may be. In the meantime, I want to talk about your Supreme Court case. You know, it's one of my favorite places to hang out, and you mentioned it. So I want to talk about this case about whether you can wear political apparel at or around polling places on primary or general election days. We have a little information about the law that you're challenging. There's up to a $5,000 fine, up to a year in jail. So tell me, what is political apparel? I mean, what did you guys get in trouble for? Was it hats, buttons, T-shirts? How does this work?
T-shirts, buttons, primarily at that time. But the way that the law is written and the way the policy by Joe Mansky, Ramsey County Elections Manager, and Secretary of State then at the time, Mark Ritchie, implemented the policy to deal with this, they gave election judges complete subjective discretion to determine on their own what represented political speech and what didn't. That gave an election judge the authority to harass, intimidate, and even threaten prosecution to a voter based upon what they were wearing in the polling place. We found that policy to be abhorrent, it's overbroad, it's extremely dangerous to the First Amendment and to voting rights in the country. And so now we're very pleased that the United States Supreme Court has seen fit to take up this case.
Yeah, you have at least a handful of justices who are interested in wading into this, and we understand it'll be in the spring. So we'll be there when the case is argued. Dan, thanks for your time tonight. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, would the Pence rule have prevented the sex scandals on Capitol Hill? Why critics of the vice president's strict marital guidelines are still mocking him, even after numerous high-profile men are accused of sex harassment and assaults. Well, the president's always complaining about, quote, fake news, but is the media giving him ammunition virtually every day? We'll investigate the latest big corrections. And guns are out in Houston. We're going to tell you how these two handled their road rage. Wow, when we return. Welcome back to Fox News at Night. President Trump loves to label much of the mainstream media fake news. And when they make mistakes involving his administration, it only bolsters the critics' claims. For example, Bloomberg just issued a correction to a bombshell report about Deutsche Bank and Trump's financial records. The first version said special counsel Robert Mueller, quote, zeroed in on Trump's records. Then the corrected version said the subpoena seeks information on affiliated people. The Trump administration has denied the report, you may recall. And then the New York Times ran an article headlined, KT McFarland contradicted herself on Russia contacts. McFarland is Trump's former deputy national security advisor. The Times then heavily edited the original article before scrubbing it entirely. A new article appeared headlined, McFarland's testimony about Russia contacts is questioned. Well, despite the avalanche of sexual harassment allegations rocking the nation on an almost daily basis, the vice president continues to be mocked for what has become known as the Mike Pence rule, the belief that men should avoid spending time alone with women they aren't married to.
Apparently, he won't go out to dinner with a woman, we've heard, unless his wife Karen is with him too. And he won't attend any event where booze is served without her either. Now, what is he afraid of?
Well, others argue that policy could actually keep a lot of people out of trouble. So with us to debate it, Mark Lauder, former spokesman for the vice president, and syndicated radio host and Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall. Great to have you both with us.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, Shannon. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I want to read a little bit of an article by Sadiq Malik in the Courier Journal yesterday. She said this, quote, not feeling comfortable in the presence of women is a general habit of insecure men. For them, a woman is a sex object and can dismantle their self-control, which they almost certainly don't have to begin with. Mark, I'll give you first bite at that.
I mean, this is just another attempt by liberal writers and leftists to mock people of faith and who might observe things a little bit differently than other people do. The Pence rule, so to speak, is basically guidelines that Mike and Karen Pence set up at the beginning of their marriage when he entered public service as a way to show the commitment to their marriage. And the way that I know it's a success is when you look at their 3 decades plus of a strong marriage, the fact that they are so much, very much in love with each other, and they've raised 3 amazing children.
All right, Leslie, I know you're not a fan of this policy, or you think it could use some tweaks.
Well, first of all, what he and his wife decide to do is fine. My husband and I have been married 21 years, have 2 wonderful children, are madly in love, and I think my husband's having dinner with a woman, and there's probably wine on the table at this minute, and I'm fine with it. But what they decide to do privately is fine. I don't think will affect the problem at all, because the problem doesn't have to do with being alone with a woman. And quite frankly, this is why in some countries overseas they force women to wear burqas, quite frankly, so that men won't see the outline of their bodies. I mean, would this what we're going to resort to in the United States in 2017?
Okay, I think that is a few steps past what we're talking about not spending time alone with women. I don't think we're going to burqas. I don't think that the vice president is suggesting anything along those lines.
The bottom line is this: a person who is going to sexually harass a woman or sexually assault a woman doesn't need to be kept from that behavior. It's a pattern of behavior. We've seen that in Hollywood. We have seen that in our industry. We have seen that on Capitol Hill. Quite frankly, we've seen that across the board here and worldwide. So if somebody has the Pence rule, so to speak, I don't think that's going to stop their behavior. And quite frankly, I think it's very difficult in this day and age when more women are in various aspects of business, politics included, to conduct business. I mean, if the vice president needs to meet with a cabinet member who's female, he has to bring his wife to the meeting. That, to me, just doesn't seem professional.
That's ludicrous, and it's not even true. The vice president has business meetings with anyone that's necessary to have business with, and I can tell you, having served in his office and worked for him for a number of years, his deputy chief of staff, his top national security advisor, and my successor as press secretary are all very talented, dedicated women who I am sure do not feel like they're being held back, but are actually being supported and promoted by Vice President Pence.
All right, I want to quickly ask you, too, about a second topic that we have. The president's going to be at the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum dedication on Saturday, some celebrations there. Congressmen Lewis and Thompson have said they're not going to go, and this is part of their joint statement. Trump's attendance and his hurtful policies are an insult to the people portrayed in this Civil Rights Museum. They say after Trump departs, we encourage all Mississippians and Americans to visit this historic Civil Rights Museum. Mark, they say they just can't share the stage with them.
This is another example of Democrats engaging in the politics of division. President Trump has made it a priority to create jobs for all Americans, to cut taxes for people who are living paycheck to paycheck. A single mom making $30,000 a year would save $700 under the president's tax cut plan. He's talking about investing in our cities in infrastructure and improving education. This is an opportunity to bring people together and talk to each other, even if we may disagree on some policies. Right. And it's just disappointing that they're using this as an opportunity to divide. A
quick final word to you, Leslie. We're out of time, but I want to make sure I get you in on this. I mean, is it a missed opportunity to be together on something important like this?
No. Congressman Lewis has fought for years for civil rights. He is an African American. I am not. I don't know that plight or the offense that has been taken by so many of the actions and the comments of the president. It doesn't have to do with policy, quite frankly. It has to do with reaction to people that have fought policies that they're against, whether it's take a knee or whether we look at lawsuits in his casinos or in his apartment buildings in New York. The list goes on. There has been anger from the African American community toward the president prior to him being president and currently now as he sits in the Oval Office.
Yeah, they won't be together. But we're glad you were together tonight, Mark and Leslie. Good to see you both. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Shannon.
Stunning moments caught on camera in Houston, Texas last night where a minor traffic accident turned into a shootout. 2 men apparently emerged from their vehicles wielding handguns and began firing just moments later. That incident, which being labeled road rage, was captured by local Houston news station KTRK. We are told that a bystander and one of the shooters were actually injured. More on that later. A firestorm of debate today about the White House's position on safety concerns at the Winter Olympics. Will the U.S. bail from the Games?
No official decision has been made on that. The goal is to do so, but that'll be a decision made closer to time. That's an interagency process, but I think ultimately the president would certainly weigh in. But
most of the Russian athletes will not be there, but what about the U.S.? Our doubts about whether the U.S. Olympic team is going to South Korea for the 2018 Winter Olympics, real or imagined? Leland Vittert worked on the story for us last night. He is here with the very latest. What have you learned?
Well, as of now, they're going.
Okay.
Although it seemed as though it was an open question as the White House spent the day clarifying whether or not they will go to South Korea, that being the U.S. Olympic team. This is an update from Sarah Sanders, the press secretary. The U.S. looks forward to participating in the Winter Olympics in South Korea. The protection of Americans is our top priority. We are engaged with the South Koreans and other partners, nations to secure the venues. Of course, part of that security includes massive U.S. and South Korean war games. And while the footage may not be a great promo for attending the Olympics, it is designed to send a message to the North of American power and resolve. Of course, nothing says American projection of power like a pair of B-1B bombers flying from Guam to buzz the Korean Peninsula. At least there were supposed to be a pair, that being 2 bombers. As we reported last night, there was only one, because the other one was stuck on the runway in Guam with mechanical problems. Pentagon now tells us that had it been wartime rather than a training mission, the second bomber would have been able to fly. Of course, the Olympics is supposed to be about everything but war, as Pope Francis said, about bringing us together as one human family. Although gold medalist Lindsey Vonn made it clear her performance this winter will be about something else.
I hope to represent the people of the United States, not the president.
Would you accept an invitation to the White House if you were to win Olympic gold in Pyeongchang?
Absolutely not.
Sponsored by, among others, Red Bull and Under Armour. Reached out to both of them for comment tonight. So far, haven't heard back, Shannon, although a number of folks on Twitter are expressing their thoughts on Vonn's statement with hashtag boycott Red Bull and boycott Under Armour.
Well, that often happens. So that's
times we live
part of speaking your mind. So we'll see. Thanks for keeping us updated. Let us know how it turns out.
For sure.
All right, lightning strikes and a Christmas tree is born. Where in the world did that happen? It's next. Where in the world did it happen? We are about to find out. A towering Christmas tree that survived a lightning strike in Poland was lit up in a ceremony in St. Peter's Square on Thursday by 2 children. It's beautiful. Polish Pope John Paul II began the tradition of positioning a Christmas tree in St. Peter's Square in '82. His successors have carried on with the tradition. Most watched, most trusted, and most grateful you spent the evening with us. Good night from Washington. I'm Shannon Bream.